Work session and regular meeting, May 28th, 2019. We're calling the work session to order. Items for review and discussion.
Mr. Mayor, the first item we have this evening is the Evergy ED 101 program that would be presented by 80 Advantage. And here this evening to describe that and explain that process is Carolyn Yatsuk, our Economic Development Director.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. On the agenda tonight is the discussion for ED 101, and it is intended for councils, planning commissions, and boards. And the purpose for me discussing this with you tonight is to gather feedback as to your interest in the participation. The educational opportunity is provided to us through KCP&L's local partner program, and its purpose is to create high-performing city councils and planning commissions to support the missions and goals of economic development. And a brief outline of ED 101 is in your packet, which begins on page 5. As a side note, you're going to see some branding there for Evergy. KCP&L and Westar Energy have merged, and so soon they will be, KCP&L will be Evergy. And this program will be presented, by Janet 80, and she is a nationally renowned site selector. Some of you met her at the Strategic Planning for Economic Development. There's a brief agenda on page 10 of your packet, and if you so choose to participate in this educational opportunity, she will discuss things such as fundamentals of economic development, the depth and breadth of economic development, project trends and timelines, business development, labor and talent, placemaking, and housing, and how to be competitive and stay ahead of the game. If council does decide to participate in this, she will be in town on August 28th. There are other communities within the Kansas City region, and bundling the package just saves her time and saves KCP&L money. So August 28th, it would be 7:30 a.m. to 10:30 a.m., and that is a Wednesday. And if council agrees or would like to participate in this educational opportunity, we would at that time invite the Planning Commission to attend as well.
Thoughts? Anybody? Comments?
At this time this evening, if this is something that you might be interested in, Carolyn and I would like to have that feedback, as we need to get a hold of all of the related companies to let them know that the city is interested so that they can add us to their calendar. So if this is something that you would be interested in attending, if you could let us know, and we will say affirmative, or if not, and you'd like to pass and it's something that you'd like to look in the future, we could do that as well.
Councilwoman Davidson.
Is there a cost for the city to participate?
There is a cost of $1,500. The rest of the cost is covered by KCP&L. It would be $5,500 without the local partner program, but it would be a cost of $1,500. That $1,500 is in the fiscal year 2020 economic development budget.
Questions? Councilman Van Winkle.
Carolyn, just give me a short synopsis of why we should do this and what you're feeling on it. I'm assuming you're supporting it or it wouldn't be here. So.
Absolutely. So I think it's important to bring not only the City Council but Planning Commission together to hear from an actual site selector about new trends, things that we should be doing. One of the things that she will probably be discussing is just the speed, the timing of these projects, just trying to share with City Council and Planning Commission expectations of businesses in today's market. That's just one example. So getting everybody on the same page, I think, is asking questions. Having everybody in the same room asking questions, I think, is beneficial.
Where's the economic development money come from?
Hotel motel tax?
Can that money go anywhere else?
No, it can only be used for economic development, and it's collected through the hotel motel tax.
Questions or comments? Thoughts? Councilman Lathrop.
$1,500. I'm sorry.
And I'm glad you did that. I meant to interrupt you. I got a message last week. People were asking me to tell everybody to turn their microphones up and turn them on. They hadn't been able to hear it on television. So I'm
that-
sorry.
I'm sorry. That $1,500, that cover how many people?
That covers as many people as we want. So it would be City Council, Planning Commission, and possibly the Chamber of Commerce Board. We're thinking about that.
Okay.
Okay. How do we want to signify this? What would be an appropriate way?
You could go through a motion, or it could just be a reading of the room. Up to you.
I'd entertain a motion.
A work session, aren't we? You can vote in the work session.
Can we do a motion in a work session?
Yes.
I'll make a motion to do it.
You can do a motion in a work session.
And we need a second. Any discussion? Seeing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes.
Excuse me, Mayor, what was the motion?
The motion was to do the $1,500 on the Economic Development Plan. ED Advantage, there it is. What do you got next?
Thank you, Carol.
Can I make one?
Sir.
We want to make sure we take a lot of people down there.
I'm glad you brought that up. She's coming to us, so it'll be
Oh,
right
he's
here in the
coming down.
council chambers.
Well, we need to have the house full.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, yeah. Very good point. I should have mentioned that in my presentation.
Yes.
The next item on the agenda this evening is an update to the rental inspection program. You'll recall that there was this was brought to the council a few months back, and Dave Clements and appropriate staff have been working on this program, and we now have an update with additional information for you.
Thanks, City Manager. This is a work session discussion. This will serve as a follow-up to a January 22nd work session where the City Council reviewed a draft rental inspection program and a recommendation from the Code Enforcement Advisory Committee on such program. Just as a little bit of background, key points of the program are that residential landlords and multifamily landlords would be required to obtain a business license, and the rental properties would be inspected every 2 years. Inspections would be conducted by a third-party inspector utilizing an inspection checklist provided by the city. The city would maintain those records of those inspections and issue subsequent business licenses upon a completed and successful inspection. I just have 2 slides here for you today, this evening. I thought we'd take just a minute and look at the basic health and life safety inspection items that are covered by the proposed program. This is not a full house inspection like you would do for a real estate closing. This is a basic health and life safety, and those inspection items are on the slide. Our third-party inspector would be looking for no exposed electrical wiring. We'll be looking for smoke detectors in working order. Determine that all interior and exterior handrails are secure. The inspector would also confirm that the property has a working sanitary sewer system. The inspector would also confirm that the furnace and water heater are in working order, along with carbon monoxide detectors in working order. The inspector would also look for ground fault interceptors within 6 feet of a water source, which is a code requirement. And of course, we would be looking for safe and unobstructed means of access for first responders. And a very basic item, just make sure address numbers are visible on the front of the house. So those are simply the 8 or 9 items that would be done by a third-party inspector. Costs are on my next slide. A annual business license would be $70, and I would like to point out that that business license exists now for landlords and property owners. You do have a ordinance on the agenda tonight that's slightly changing the threshold for that requirement, but this is a current requirement, and the council will just be looking at making a change in that this evening. We would anticipate, as our continued discussions with this program, that the first year would just be outreach, education, and initial registration of property owners. We think it's going to be very time-consuming to get property owners signed up, get them aware of the details of the program, and we did not think it would be very efficient to do the registration and try to do the first year of inspections all concurrently. So we wanted to do a little ramp-up time, and we think that makes some sense. Year 2 would be also the $70 business license, and that would just be a renewal of the first year. But year 2 would then begin the inspections. And the inspections by the third-party inspector are proposed to be a $50 inspection fee per unit for rental property. Now, if there's a reinspection necessary, the third-party inspectors generally charge $15 for a reinspection. So, there may be some minor variations in those costs depending on status of the inspection. But generally, these would be the costs that we would expect the program to cost on an annual basis. We have continued our work on this. We've looked at some program parameters. As we stated in our January meeting, this program is modeled somewhat after a new and successful program in the City of Independence, and we went and visited that staff. We talked with their program manager, we talked to their department director, and learned a lot about the strengths and weaknesses of their program. And we brought all that back in this information we're proposing for you this evening. What we generally think would be if the City Council concurs in these program parameters, and the City Manager and I would begin to do some outreach to landlord groups. I do have a meeting on June 18th with the Cass County Landlords Association where I will be talking about the program in general and getting some feedback. We felt like it was important to have some program parameters and some guidelines that people could comment on. And after that meeting's concluded, we'll come back to the City Council with some feedback before we go any further with the program. So with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions as I conclude.
Councilman Finn?
Yeah, so we're going to use a third-party vendor, correct? Come in, inspect these properties?
Yes.
Fantastic. And will it be just one company that's the third party, or will it be like a round robin? How will that work to get the best inspections possible?
Well, again, we are attempting to, look at the successful program in Independence, and they have 6 qualified third-party inspectors that a property owner can call any of the above.
Okay,
And they all use the same checklist,
fantastic. And how many rental properties do we have here in Belton?
about 3,000.
3,000. So if we multiply 3,000 times 50, what does that get us? 150,000? So that's a great opportunity for business here. I think that, looking at that, is this something we would look at wanting to have 6 different inspectors to call? Or is this something that we could qualify these inspection companies and look for a better bidder, save money?
Well, we talked to 2 of the third-party groups that work in Independence, and they all are very comfortable with the fees that Independence charges. Again, those are fees at this point in time today. Over the life of the program, over the years in the future, that may change, and we would have no control over that. But we would, I'm guessing on an annual basis, we would talk to those third-party inspectors and just understand what their level of fees would be, and try to keep a level playing field for our residents and landlords.
Thanks, Dave.
Yes, sir.
Councilman Trutzel, and then Councilwoman Davidson.
In my previous life, I had some rental property. Not all renters are eager to have anybody enter their premises. So I'm going to assume that some of these people out here are going to be saying, it's time for an inspection. I don't want to let you in the door. So we need to have something in place to deal with that issue.
That would be the responsibility of the property owner to obtain right of access.
That isn't always as easy as it appears. It almost becomes a police legal situation. It's I think even Mayor Davis has had some situations where some property wanted to be bought and they couldn't get access to it because the renters didn't want you in the door. So getting in the door, most people will let you in, no problem. But you're going to have a few people that are going to say, I'm not letting you through the front door. And it's even difficult for the landlord to get into his own property. I'm just bringing it up.
Well, I'm sure we will learn a lot as we go forward, Mr. Trutzel, and that may be one of the things that we encounter. We have to strategize about how to best approach that the next time it happens.
Yeah. Thank you.
Councilwoman?
So this $70 business license is an annual cost,
Yes.
and how often are the properties inspected after year 2,
Year 4,
year 4?
every 2 years.
Okay.
Yes.
Is there, I'm curious, does Independence have a way of enforcing that all landlords, how do we know that all landlords are abiding by this and purchasing a license versus operating without?
Well, that's the outreach that we want to try to do that first year. And, you know, we have access to county records which help us determine who property owners are. And we would send letters to those individuals, begin to educate them as to the requirements to do so. And if they did not, then we would have enforcement mechanisms to cite them and have them come forward for the license. Just like anybody else not operating without a license.
On the previous slide, there was a condition, I think number 6, that talked about carbon monoxide detectors. Is that a requirement for rental properties to have a carbon monoxide?
It is in the code, yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Councilman Clark?
Question on Stephanie. She asked, I guess I didn't understand, how often are we inspecting these?
Every 2 years.
Even if a new tenant, like someone moves out in 6 months, are we going back in then, or is it every 2 years?
Every 2 years.
Okay. Are we doing single family, or are we also doing apartments and,
Any rental property, including single-family homes that are rented.
okay,
Yes,
so single family apartments, trailers, no matter what, if it's rented, it's being looked at?
That's the program suggestion.
Okay, thank you.
Sir.
Okay, my turn. What are the trends in economic development and housing? What I've seen are numbers, Carolyn, and the number of people that are renting houses even, that is growing. The numbers are really kind of alarming. Or leasing, does that count, leasing as renting, same
Yes,
thing?
sir.
What would you say?
It's about 30% in the city of Belton.
It's about 30%, but do you expect those to grow, those numbers?
I can't anticipate the market as we start to build out some of these new, like, for example, Meadow Creek Phase 2. Once we start to build more actual homes, hopefully it will decrease.
Okay, what I've had a lot of personally is a lot of people send to me complaints that their landlords won't fix the problems that they have, like exposed wiring or no smoke detectors, or the furnace doesn't work, the water heater, or it's got a leak, or I get those all the time. And I guess, is this the whole reason? Is this why this is necessary? Is this the catalyst behind this, or?
Yes, sir. I think this is an opportunity to get in front of those things so they don't happen over a period of time. You know, when inspections occur on that first 2 years of the program, we would hopefully catch those things and have those remedied. And so that person would not have that issue any longer.
Questions? Councilman Savage?
Mayor, when you get those calls, where do you send those calls to?
Sometimes I put them in your folder, like by wards, like I have a
What I would
folder
be
for every
thinking,
ward.
what I would be thinking is that we would do what we should do and send it to codes, and codes would knock on that door.
We do that, we send them to codes. Yeah, I thought you were talking
I think
about.
we're sure, no, I'm not being smart aleck,
Okay.
seriously.
Okay.
I think we're short on codes enforcement. I have voiced that before. I think this will help that. However, I still have issues, as I've voiced before, of forcing entry on anyone's home, including my own. How long until you come into our private homes, you know, as we give you the authority to do. That concerns me a great deal. Another piece of this is, you know, I have trouble getting anybody out to even just drive out to my place for $50. I hear this $50 fee, but for how long? I couldn't call for a bug man to come out and only pay $50 for him to look. So I'm not necessarily agreeing with the numbers. And again, the privacy thing. What I wanted to ask Dave, you've been studying this, exposed wiring. What about the wiring that's in the basement? That's in the floor joists? Is that exposed wiring? Because that's not uncommon at all. Or at least it isn't where I've seen it.
Well, yeah, if it's visible exposed wiring, that would be something that this program would try to remedy, yes.
Could be major rewiring there.
I speak to that.
Well, we
Go
wouldn't
ahead,
say
I'd like to
exposed,
know,
you
because I do know of houses that's wired through the flooring in the
Absolutely.
basement.
Yeah, so it'd be in a Romex or it'd be in a wrapped wiring. He's
Right.
talking about bare wires that would be
Wire
showing.
wire, okay,
Yeah.
well, that's, I can understand that.
Yeah, and so it is common to see that, but that is safe, the way it's wrapped, it
So
would be
you're
proper.
speaking of bare as in copper
Yes, sir.
wiring. is
Right. There we
what-
go, yes, sir.
I can buy that, 'cause that kinda concerned me.
Interesting. The biggest concern, I've been following Kansas City's program also, and it's a little more dramatic, I think. But the whole thing is when you see those stories of these people that are dying in these places, and it was unnecessary deaths. They didn't have smoke alarms. They didn't have it safe with all these 9. Not necessarily the address, but you understand what I'm saying. Although that could be a problem too when they call for a fire and they don't know the address. Of course, it should be in the computer, but you're still looking for it when you get there. So I don't want to pound apartment people. I don't want to, the people that control that, but I would sure like to see that we have something happen in this regards to make these say, with 30% of our people, it is a big deal. Councilman Clark.
I know Kansas City, you brought up Kansas City, so it made me think of older homes. Are we going to test for lead paint or anything like that? No? Okay.
That's a good question, though. You see a lot of that. Councilman Finn.
I could speak to that as well. So every time a property is sold, and granted, if you've owned it for a while, that's different. However, every time a property is sold, there's a disclosure on there that states whether or not that's known that there's lead-based paint in it. So that document is signed every time. So, and most everything's been coded since 1978, and so that's what you'll see. So I don't think that's going to be a big issue.
That's if the prior owner actually
Prior.
knows it though, right?
Correct. And if you've owned a rental, it's been painted many, many times.
Councilwoman Davidson.
The $70 annual fee, does that cover an unlimited number of properties?
Yes, it does.
Other questions? Councilman Lathrop first, then Councilman Savage.
Okay, on the inspection, you said you'd have 4 or 5. They have to call the ones that you approve?
Yes, because they'd be using our checklist.
Okay.
Then Councilman Savage.
Just another word to the consideration. All the rules in the world don't always fix everything, and some experiences that I've seen, especially as with smoke alarms, now it's smoke alarm and carbon monoxide, you can have them things working, you can put them in brand new, and if you get the wrong people, the batteries are gone and they're somewhere else in very short order. So it don't necessarily mean that it's going to change the safety, or it might. It could go both ways, but I've experienced and seen that happen. So again, another place where restraints and rules it's only as good as everybody you're working with. And you can't go in and inspect the house every month as a landlord. I do not have anything to speak of anymore, but I used to fight that all the time, and I really was very conscious of keeping those smoke detectors, because that was the law for one thing. Working, but you couldn't do it necessarily. You
I
keep
don't
trying.
think that all landlords are bad examples. I think that holds true. It's the ones that aren't good landlords that are the ones that are killing this.
And I think that's true, but again, we're kind of putting it on everybody, though. There's no cut option. And again, that's why that I have worked, at least made my voice, and I appreciate you hearing it, and the fact that codes enforcements are necessary, letters are necessary, saying, hey, if you've got a problem as a landlord or a tenant, call us. It's what we're here for, and then we need the staff to be able to deal with that. I don't think we've tried that program. For one thing, we haven't had that option. We haven't had the help available. And I do think that the city licenses and the fees for those will generate the dollars to put the enforcement on it that I do agree with. I think we need.
Any other comments? Councilman Finn?
Yeah, Dave, would the landlord or the owner need to be present for this inspection? Usually when selling real estate, someone has to be present to support the inspector at the time of the inspection.
You know, I don't know the answer to that.
Okay, I think logistically, this is an important thing. As somebody that may own maybe 10 or 15 rentals, that could be really cumbersome
Time consuming.
to have to jump around, and who knows what dates they would be or if they could do them all in one date. So just to understand what would that look like for the owners of these properties, that'd be great.
Councilwoman Davidson?
Do we feel like this list right here covers everything? So just for example, if we have a third-party inspector go out, and this kind of ties into what Ryan was just saying, why I think it might be good to have the owner present if the third-party inspector comes across something else that might be a codes violation that's not necessarily included in this list, that there may be follow-ups that come out of that.
These would be minimum standards for the property maintenance inspection, but certainly a property owner could do above and beyond in terms of repairs.
Councilman Finn?
I'd like to follow up to that. And so my understanding, this is the scope of work here specifically that the inspector would be looking at. He would not be looking for anything other than these 9 items, correct?
These are basic health and life
Correct.
safety items.
Not that there couldn't be other things, I'm not saying, and there definitely could, but this is their scope to pay attention to, not other items.
Right. Now,
Okay.
certainly if the city council was so inclined, we could add as many things to this list as you would like, but that's only going to affect the price of the inspection.
Absolutely.
Councilman Lathrop?
On this inspection fee, is that per unit or per building?
Per unit.
Per unit. So if you got a 4 complex, you're gonna have to pay $200.
Yes, sir.
I did see something interesting recently about what the average rent is in Belton for houses. Right now, they're going for as high as $900 or more. $900 for a rental house.
Much more than that.
Small one.
Mayor?
Small one?
Yeah.
Mayor, yeah.
Yes, sir.
In my neighborhood, they go for about $1,600 a month.
Yeah.
That's a 4-bedroom, 2.5 bath house.
Why
In
is
Ward
that
1.
trend, why is that happening?
The market has brought up the price of real estate, and so you're either going to buy a home or you're going to buy somebody else a home if you're a renter. Basically is what it looks like, and that's the cost of what it is to purchase a home now.
Some people are between a job and don't know where they're gonna live at.
Call Chet Trutzel.
Who else? Any other
you go, Chet.
discussion? Okay. I'm sure we'll be talking about this again. Move on to C. What do you got?
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you,
The
Dan.
last item that we have this evening on our work session is our April monthly financial report, and Sheila has that information to report.
Good evening. I really have a very short report. This is the first month of our new fiscal year. We're less than 10% into the fiscal year, so a lot can change between now and the end of the year. I did pass out to you guys the April financial report that was emailed to you last week. And then I also handed out a few pages from April of 2018 for comparison's sake. Right now, early into this year, we have our gas utility franchise tax. It's a little bit up from where we anticipated. That, of course, is because of the very cold winter, and we're a couple months behind on collecting those utility franchise taxes, and so that's why you see that up. Ambulance revenue fees are down from where we anticipated, but we do expect by the end of the year for that to catch back up. If you will look at page 2, there is our cash balances. Really, we have about $3.3 million in the general fund at the end of April 30th, 2019. That is about $260 $3,000 less than it was a year ago. And I don't think that surprises anybody. We talked about that last month when we talked about the fiscal year 2019 results. Also, if you turn to page 3, our unreserved fund balance on April 30th, 2019 is about approximately 18%, and that's about 6.78% than it was a year ago. And that also shouldn't surprise anyone. And then also, if you look at page 4, this is really my favorite report page of the financial report. It's kind of a snapshot of every single fund, and of course, general fund is always the most important fund to the city because general fund revenues and money is not restricted. And so, in the event of a natural disaster, like say a tornado struck, we would be able to use that general fund money to get us through while we were waiting on money to come in from SEMA or FEMA. We would be able to use that money to kind of get us through. And that is why the general fund has a fund balance requirement, a reserve amount, and that's why we pay so much attention to that fund. All of the other funds in the city, that money is restricted by state statute, that the money that comes into those other funds can only be used on a certain expense. It cannot be used for anything. So, like street sales tax, it can only be used on streets. Park sales tax, it can only be used on parks. You can't use it for public safety. You can't use it for anything other than the purpose that is set out in state law. So this is my favorite page because it's kind of a snapshot of where we are at April 30th, 2019. You can see that our general fund had revenues of $1.1 million, and our expenditures were approximately $1.2 million. Overall, we had $61,000 of expenditures more than revenues. That is different than a year ago. A year ago, we actually were about $80,000 worse off than we are this April. And really the real reason for that, I thought that you guys might be curious about that, was our sales tax revenue. Our sales tax revenue in 2018 was, because of timing issues, down by about $68,000 from the prior year in 2017. Our April 2019 sales tax was about $80,000 over where it was in April of 2018, if that makes sense. So all of that, we still used more expenses than we did revenue, so we still dipped into that savings account for the month of April. We didn't dip into it as much, and that is all because of revenues. And so we had about $80,000 more in sales tax revenue than we did the year before.
How about you've got 2 TIFs that are about to mature. That'd be Town Center. Well, first would be Marketplace.
Marketplace.
And how much will both of those be estimated?
Marketplace, when Marketplace gets paid off at the end of this fiscal year, so before March 31st is what we're anticipating. There could be things that happen that make that not happen, but I don't foresee that happening. That will generate about $60,000 additional dollars every year for the general fund.
Okay, and the following year?
And then the following year, Belton Town Center TIF is anticipated to be paid off, and that will be between $300,000 and $350,000 each year for the general fund.
Did you have a question?
I did.
Councilman? Yeah.
That's great. So we have additional $80,000 in tax revenue that came in this year versus last year. Not to speculate, where do you feel like that's coming from?
I think it's all timing.
Just timing.
So definitely, I do think that that sales tax revenue is up a little bit. We had things happen. For example, Cracker Barrel wasn't open. We didn't have revenue
I
from.
helped out there.
But there are different things that are happening. But $80,000 is a lot.
Sure.
And so that is because of timing. So what I really think is that April of 2018, that was the year that had the timing off. So it's not necessarily that the timing's off this year, it was the prior year, because if you look at April 2018, it was $68,000 under the prior year. And this year it's $80,000 over, this year is $80,000 over that year that was $68,000 down. So honestly, I believe that it's timing. So whenever I'm looking at revenues, I'm always trying to look at a 12-month period, because that is going to give us our best knowledge of kind of what the trend is. When you look at 1 or 2 months, you take a lot of risk of timing differences. And so while we report to you month by month, and for the, we start out each year, by the time we get to February, I feel a lot better in telling you how I think we're going to end than I do when we are in April or even in June or July. So.
All right. Thank you.
Councilman Clark.
That 80,000, I mean, April 1st was the first year, or the first month for the fire and police tax also. Is that included in that 80,000 as a separate fund?
It is not at all, because the sales tax went into effect April 1st. Businesses collect that in the month of April. They submit it to the state in the month of May, and the city will
So
get
this is actually
our
March
first
money?
money in, yes.
Okay.
Well, it's actually February money. It's
Okay.
2 months behind.
Did I answer that? Over here, did we have a question? Anybody else? Okay, are we at the end of that financial report? How about you doing what I've asked you for? Have everybody in the audience pull out their phones real quick. We're following the weather, by the way, so we keep passing back. We're watching it for y'all.
So the mayor wanted me to show the public how to get to our financial information on our website. So the city's priority is really to always be as open and transparent as possible, and make sure that all the information that that citizens would like to have is available, especially financial information, on the website. And so he asked if I could do a demonstration of how we get there. So if you go to www.belton.org, that is the city's website. It looks different if you're on your cell phone, but if you are on a laptop or maybe even a tablet, I'm not sure, it will look like this. And the way that you go is there's a tab that's departments. And if you go to finance, you can see that there's 2 options under the finance department, and one is financial reports and one is utility billing. And so if you go to that financial reports, you will see that the city's annual budget is on there, not only the most recent one, but you can look and you can see that it goes all the way back to 2006. And if you, I don't know how to go back. So let me just go again to finance, and you have those 2 options, financial reports. And then we also have just added, there were a lot of questions. I got several emails from citizens asking for our monthly financial report. So we went ahead and added the most recent monthly financial report. So if you go there, people can see, there's 2 versions. You guys get 2 versions emailed. You guys get a short report. That's what we go over. But also when you are emailed, you get the long report. And I went ahead and put the long report because I think it's much more useful. It has comparative data from the prior year to the current year. And if people want to see kind of how we're trending, that's why I put the long monthly financial report on there for citizens to use, and we'll continue updating that. Then also, the audited financial statements. So every year, an outside independent CPA firm comes in and reviews the city's financial statements. The monthly financial report is done on a cash basis. The audited financial statements are done on a accrual basis. They have to be done on according to GAAP, and that is because our bond requirements and bond covenants require that we do full accrual financial statements for the outside auditors to be able to audit. And so you can see that those are all the way, it looks like, to 2011. No, 2005. So you can see all of the city's audited financial statements from 2018 to 2005. And we do have more. They're in my office, so if anybody ever wanted to see one of those before that, they could do a request to the city clerk for open records and could get a copy of that.
Anybody, anything else you'd like for her to show you on financial on the webpage? Everything's there. A lot of people, I guess, you should probably take a picture of that. Is that how they could remember how to find it, or? But,
Carolyn wanted me to also show that citizens can be notified of, they can get notifications of meeting notices, the agendas, any news releases that are posted on the website. And to do that, if you're on the city's homepage, right down here, there is this little tab that says sign up for e-notifications. You go there, you can put in your email address, and you can tell it if you want council agenda packets, if you want planning commission agenda packets, if you would like to be emailed about whenever the city does a bid posting, and to get to know when job vacancies and when the city's hiring, and also news flashes and the calendar. So we really do want our citizens to be informed, and we want them to be participating, and so we like to make sure that we have as much information available and out there for the public.
outstanding. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. I'd like for this to be a trend for department heads as the city manager decides, so maybe it's public works, maybe it's community development, do the same thing, economic development, where you just say, this is how you find what I'm doing. This is how you can complain about codes. You can complain, those kinds of things. So this is so that we can show people how to help yourselves and find where all this stuff is without too much work. Without ado, I got Chief just came in. I want to give him a second, but I want Miss Missouri to come up and wave at everybody real quick. Come on up here. Miss Mellinger, Casey, stand up and come up a little bit. Maybe Alan will want to take a picture of you at our meeting. Come on up here. Well, say something about what's going on. She's going to be a candidate of the 27 in the state of Missouri for Miss Missouri. Yeah.
I have a loud voice. It's fine. I'm representing Belton at Miss Missouri. Here in a couple of weeks, I actually just got back from Jefferson City getting some relief for the tornadoes that hit Jefferson City for our Special Olympics. So, yeah, it looked like a disaster and I'm bruised from head to toe, but it's fine. We're doing good things. So I just wanted to...
You had dance class though, didn't you, tonight?
We canceled due to the weather tonight, so...
Okay, good excuse. Well, good luck, and Belton's behind you girls. We're hoping great things, and it's a good cause. Thank you.
Mayor,
I'm up.
I would just say we have two former Miss Beltons
Right.
in the contest this year.
I did say plural.
Yeah.
I said girls. And the other is Olivia Henson. And so we're really proud that Belton has all the pretty girls. So, and talented also.
Double threat.
That's
Yeah.
the truth.
Yeah.
So we're really proud. So we've got a double whammy of good looks. Yeah? What do you got? What are you going to have Chief tell us?
Well, Chief Person, I have been watching the weather radar. If you would just provide a brief update to everyone in the room, if you don't mind.
There's a large major tornado that has been on the ground over in Kansas. Nothing appears to be coming our way. It went through Clinton County, actually on the ground through Lawrence. It was headed towards Tonganoxie. The eventual path takes it towards Parkville in about the next 40 minutes, but it's they've had pictures of it from the air and on the ground both. It looks to be about a mile wide and a huge tornado. So once again, nothing appears to be headed this direction at all. I was out in the EOC and looking at the radar. We do have folks that are out there watching and manning that right now. So.
Well, I was going to ask a question about the alarms and all that. Is there anything we want to say about those tonight?
I can give you an update of what occurred on Friday and what we have done since then. Our alarm system is activated anytime there is a tornado warning that is issued by the National Weather Service. Our system is a computer-driven, radio-activated alarm system, siren system, that it consists of 17 different sirens all over the city. It's what you all put in place several years ago. The dispatcher, when there is a warning that's issued, pushes the button that sends the radio signal to the alarm, to the it's called alarm siren system. The siren system then sends a radio contact out to each of those 17 sirens. She has a screen, or he has a screen in front of them that is monitored both in our dispatch center and down in the EOC, and each of those 17 sirens has an icon on the screen to monitor their activity and if they're operating or not. Friday night was what would be considered a pop-up storm. There was storm warnings that were out there. There was nothing that was appearing on the screen that would lead one to believe that there was any tornadic activity headed our particular direction. At 7:48, there was a warning issued by the National Weather Service. At 7:48, the dispatcher pushed the button to send the notification. We also, to the siren system, it showed that the siren system was operational and was functioning. 7:48, we also put a call out to our emergency management volunteers. I called the school officials because the agreement is that when a warning is issued for the Belton area, that they will open the storm shelter. They did that. There were conflicting reports, both in the field from police officers and from citizens, as to whether or not the sirens were sounding. We had calls coming in asking why the sirens were sounding. We also had calls coming in asking why the sirens weren't sounding. We had some of the police officers that were acknowledging that the sirens were sounding. There were others that said that they couldn't hear any sirens. That being said, the sirens were reset again at 7:53. They were set again at 8 o'clock. They were set again at 8:15, which is protocol, and the tornado warning was canceled at 8:30. The police officers then, when it wasn't clear whether the sirens were operating or not, went into the neighborhoods and they drove through the neighborhoods sounding sirens to make sure that there was some warning going out at the time. Once everything was issued the all clear, everything was shut down, we continued to question whether or not the system was working properly or not. Saturday morning, there was no inclement weather in our area. I called in our emergency volunteers. We utilized fire units and police units. We went to all 17 sirens and we scheduled a test of all 17 sirens individually and from the EOC at fire station number 2 and from the police station. So every siren was tested 4 times. It took about an hour to test every siren. In that process, every siren sounded at least once. After the initial sounding of the sirens, 2 of those sirens failed to reset and sound a second time. We found that those 2 sirens, one had an issue with the batteries and with the charger. The other one had an issue with another electric component that controlled it after the reset. We had Blue Valley come out today along with Kamenco, which is Motorola Radio, because the system is a radio activated computer controlled system. It all works together. While they were working on that system, the system was triggered and sounded off sometime around noon. I don't have the exact time in front of me, I'm sorry.
12:20.
Thank you. As soon as it could be shut down, it was shut down. We got on Facebook, both the city, the police department. We tried to let everybody know as quickly as we could. We had all of the phones because people were calling in to the police station, the dispatch center, 911, the fire station, and City Hall. We answered all the calls as they came in. We let them know that no, there was not a tornado. The system was being worked on. As of this afternoon, all of the sirens have been repaired. Everything has passed every test. We have not been able to recreate the events of Friday, but we know that at least going forward, batteries have been replaced in the units that needed the battery. The charger's been replaced. In another unit, a controller was replaced. All 17 sirens are functioning the way they were designed to function. All of the radio contacts have been verified. All of those are functioning. Every dispatch console is functioning, and the 2 consoles in the EOC are also functioning the way that they were designed and the way that they were supposed to. We don't know exactly what happened Friday. In the middle of a storm, we don't have the personnel to go check all 17 of those sirens. If the computer screen is telling us that they're functional, we assume that they're functioning. The radio contact between all 17 of those sirens is automatically checked every day, twice a day, at 4 a.m. and at 6 p.m. It sends out a radio signal to each of those poles, and it verifies that the radio is communicating back and forth. So that is tested every day. They also do a silent alarm test from the EOC every day to make sure that there is contact from the EOC, the radio going out and hitting, and that contact is being made. On a monthly basis, the first Wednesday of every month at 11 a.m., there is a physical test of the siren, weather permitting. If there is inclement weather, we don't sound the siren because we don't want to alarm folks unnecessarily. The first Wednesday of May, there was inclement weather. It was set to go the second Wednesday of May. The second Wednesday of May, there was inclement weather. We couldn't test it the second Wednesday of May, and that's been the issue during the month of May. However, they did have the silent test that went daily and the twice a day radio contact that showed that everything was functioning. And then Saturday, every time that we tested it, the siren functioned. So moving forward, the city has not had a maintenance agreement on our emergency siren system. What I'm going to bring to you all is going to be a proposal that we have a maintenance agreement on the emergency siren system. Before that can happen, Blue Valley will have to come in and do a check of each and every siren and bring that siren up to the industry standards, which they are right now, but they will have to bring them up to Federal Signal Company's standards. They're the ones that built this system. They will go through and check every battery. They'll check every driver on the sirens. They'll check everything out on that system and make sure that it is 100% up to spec. And then we will sign a maintenance agreement so that every year, absolutely everything except a direct lightning strike will be covered as far as the sirens, the drivers, the radio contacts, and the batteries. That's going to be my proposal going forward, and I will have a price to go along with that as soon as they can get that to me.
Okay, Councilman Trutzel.
The system we got right now, I had a question this afternoon. They used to come out with a verbal testing, this is a test, or whatever the case might be, or this is a warning. We no longer have a verbal.
We had so many complaints that they could not understand the sirens, the verbal part of that warning, that the determination was made a few months ago to just go to a straight siren. Most people were used to, if it's a tornado siren. So if the tornado siren goes off, why did they need to be told this is a tornado siren? So because of the number of complaints about these are rotating sirens. So if it's not blowing the siren, there's someone talking. And if the siren is pointed away from you and they're talking and you're trying to figure out what they're saying, we just had a lot of complaints. And so the determination was made, just blow the siren. Everybody knows what a siren means.
Thank you.
Over here, did somebody have a question, comment? I had a couple. Councilwoman Peak, we talked about a few of our questions this morning. What, did you have any more that, have they all been answered, the questions or comments?
I do have one question. When you indicated for Friday night that you contacted BEMA and had them come in, are they do they come in sooner than the warning, or is somebody always monitoring if we're under a watch, or?
It depends upon what is determined the threat level is. On Friday, we did have someone in the EOC monitoring the radar and the weather. There was nothing indicated, and I was in communication there also. There was nothing indicated that it was going to be anything other than a rain event. I believe I even put, we have what we call the weather group, which is the department heads, the city manager, the mayor. I put a message out that there was nothing anticipated but a rain event, and that we were monitoring that. There was no prior warning until 7:48 when we got the tornado warning. And to be honest, by the time we got the warning, that event was already past us and headed through Raymore and Lotawana.
Okay.
For instance, we have folks in the EOC right now monitoring the radar and the weather, and we have the volunteers are put on notice that, okay, we have a weather event going on. If things go south, be prepared to come in. That message also went out this evening, and we have people in the EOC. Tornado watches can go on for 12 or 15 hours. I don't know that we would want, we're going to burn volunteers out if we put them out west of town watching the sky for 12 to 15 hours. So.
Okay, thank you.
On the on the, we were in the, what do we even call that, the think tank that we were at the other night on Friday night?
That's the EOC.
The EOC. I thought the other office was the EOC, but it's the actual behind where all the radars were.
EOC is where you ended up, yes.
Yeah, but that was interesting to hear and to watch how they worked. It was really professional, and I was really excited about to watch how it really played out. And there was a lot of good comments, a lot of good questions, and I was really appreciated the effort that our BEMA people made, and I appreciated the policemen that drove the streets and sound the sirens. Whoever idea that was great, because
We have protocol lined out for these emergencies, and if that other system is failing, it's protocol that they will go out and sound those sirens like that.
How much money, I can remember back on the council, some of you people, when we were on the council, talked about these sirens and how volatile that was back then, because we had those old base sirens that the noon whistle that you could hear till the cows came home. You could hear them in any building inside, and it was volatile when I don't know, I was pretty adamant about why we want to get rid of these. Well, they were falling apart and all that, the cost of repairing them wasn't sufficient. And then we had our first test, you remember, and it wasn't very loud. And then they said no, we weren't councilmen back then, we were something else. Alderman, and they said that they're not built for indoors.
I spoke with the technician that was out here today, and I asked specifically about the volume, and if that volume has ever been adjusted, and if it is industry standard. And he said yes, that the volume is industry standard, and no, they have never adjusted the volume. Nothing has ever been turned down. If you remember, part of the complaint about the sirens is that when they rotate, when they're pointed away from you, that you're not going to hear them. If they're pointed right at you, they may be super loud. But the complaint has been from day one that they call them outdoor warning sirens, and they are to warn people that are outdoors, and that people should have other means of notification, either nowadays apps on telephones, weather radios, television, whatever other means. They don't consider the sirens to be adequate notification for people in their homes.
Yeah, and that's, I've got how many apps, and my wife was adding another one tonight, that there's different ones you can have, and the weather, what do I want to call it? The box, I'm trying to think that you can
Weather
get.
radio?
Weather radio.
Yeah, weather radio.
Weather radio, you can get them on your phone today, and they all, and a good point that you brought up is EOC, for those like myself, again, that Emergency Operations Center is where that's at. And again, they've done a great job, but that's a good report, and we appreciate it. You got any questions?
Is that the
about-
building in West Belton?
Pardon me?
No, that they have not utilized that building for several years. At Fire Station number 2, when it was built, they built a section of that building. The far south end of that building is the EOC. There's a room in there that the Emergency Operations Center, there's a room in there that has televisions, it's got computers, telephones, they run radar, they're connected to a radar service, and a radio in there. And so they can, because when these events occur, they will have one person doing their communications who will communicate with the dispatcher, because the dispatcher is busy with the police and the fire units. They don't also have time to monitor all of those other things. And so they will have, the emergency management volunteers will have one person designated to run their communications and their computer, and that person will communicate with headquarters.
Interesting stuff, all good.
They also have a meeting room in there so that the members can have a training room, a meeting room separate from that Emergency Operations Center.
Any questions? Any comments? Thanks, Chief. That was outstanding. Appreciate it. Okay, are we about ready to move on? Before we do, I want to go ahead and thank Casey again. When is your event?
I moved on June 9th, but it starts June 12th through the 15th.
So you and Olivia will be going down about that time? Okay, with that event, what are you going to be doing?
Multiple things. We do things from private interviews with judges to our talent competition to our new red carpet segment and an onstage interview as well in front of an entire crowd.
Again, we're wishing you both the best of luck, and we know you'll do well, and we're really fortunate, again, to be represented by two really smart and talented ladies. So I'm just saying that now so you can go home if you want to. So we really appreciate you. You got to know that. And so good luck. What an experience. You didn't say anything about trying out for the Rockettes either. I'm a little disappointed. Okay. With that, we want to adjourn the work session. And at this time, we're going to call the regular meeting to order. Pledge of Allegiance by Councilman Lathrop, please.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Hope everybody had a great Memorial Day. It was great to see the patriotic folks that were still out there in the world, in America, all the people that sacrificed ultimately with their lives for us to live in such a great country. What I love about going out of the country is coming back home every time because, wow, is it different. Roll call, please.
Mayor Davis.
Here.
Councilman Savage.
Here.
Councilman Lathrop.
Here.
Councilman Trutzel.
Here.
Councilman Van Winkle. Councilman Clark.
Here.
Councilman Finn.
Here.
Councilwoman Davidson.
Here.
Councilwoman Peak.
Here.
Consent agenda. One motion, non-debatable, to approve recommendations noted. Any member of the council may ask for an item be taken from the consent agenda for discussion and separate action.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion. Councilwoman Davidson.
I'd like to discuss item E.
We'll pull item E then. And so, again, the motion, all the others, anybody else? We'll pull E and talk about it. Seeing no discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes. We'll go to ordinance E, motion approving the resolution R 2019-52. You want to read that one?
A resolution authorizing the City of Belton, Missouri through the Belton Police Department to purchase 54 9mm Sig Sauer P320s to replace 54 P220.45 handguns purchased in 2014.
Okay. Discussion.
I had a question from a constituent regarding the purchase. Why the switch, and I don't know handguns, but why the switch from the first purchase in 2000, the type of gun, to what we're wanting to purchase?
Two things. The 45 has been the standard in Belton anyway for many years. The FBI switched to the 45 and then the 40 caliber 30 years ago. After a shootout, they believed that the weapon did not have the stopping power and that they needed a bullet that would expand to at least a 40 caliber, if not a 45. At that point, we were still carrying 38 revolvers, and the recommendation when I first became chief was that we switch to a semi-automatic pistol. The thought being that if we needed a bullet that expanded to at least a 40 caliber, why don't we start with a bullet that's that size instead of relying on one that would expand to that size. We changed at that time after a test and evaluation to the Sig Sauer 45 semi-automatic pistol. And we've carried that all these years since, almost 30 years. we've replaced those over the years as they needed to be replaced. The weapons that we have now are nearing the time when it's time for us to start looking to replace them. The recommendation from the officers and from the armorer, our department armorer, was to go with a 9mm. The 9mm ammunition, all ammunition, has improved over the last 30 years to where we have bullets now that are more highly expanding bullets. The 9mm will hold more rounds, more bullets in the gun than what the 45 does. It has less recoil, doesn't kick as much as what the 45 does, and it's easier to control, particularly for people with smaller hands, than what the larger 45 is. So based upon the recommendation of our department armorer and the recommendation of the workforce, we did some test and evaluation and determined that we would go with the 9mm. This pistol in Sig Sauer is more closely related to the same Sig Sauer pistol that we carry right now in 45. The holsters that we will get are the same holsters, but they're made to fit the 9mm, so there will not be a training curve as far as the use of those holsters, and we should be able to go through the training process much more quickly. We also looked at staying with Sig because Sig Sauer offered us a very nice trade-in, and between the trade-in value of the guns and the cost that was quoted through the Sig Sauer distributor, it made it very affordable for us to change at this time.
Thank you.
Councilman Finn.
Chief, how much more cost effective is the 9mm versus the 45?
The 9mm ammunition, the average box of 9mm ammunition, of course, we use frangible ammunition to train with. That means that it hits something and it just sort of powders. But ammunition, wholesale ammunition, is between $9 and $10 a box for 9mm, and it's around $25 a box for 45. So we should save substantially on the ammunition.
Fantastic, thank you.
Also, the federal government has gone with 9mm, and they, for all of the military troops, they utilize 9mm, which is another reason that ammunition is cheaper, because of the large quantity of 9mm ammunition that's available.
Tell me that's an all clear. No? All right, how many bullets in the 9mm versus 45? I mean, how many does it hold?
The 45 is going to be an 8-shot gun. I believe the 9mm is going to be a 14 or 15 shotgun.
Okay. Other questions? I'd entertain a motion.
The grip on the newer gun is an adjustable grip, so that people with smaller hands can actually use a smaller grip size. People with larger hands can put the larger grip size in. The newer guns also, you purchase the frame and the barrel and slide separately. So with the same frame, you can make a smaller gun for the detectives. If we need a shorter barrel gun, it's just a matter of taking a different slide and barrel, and you put it on the same frame.
What does Grandview use, Councilman Van Winkle?
We use Glock 45s.
Glock 45s. Interesting. Okay, any other discussion? Motion? We have a motion, Councilwoman Peak. second, Councilman Lathrop. Any more discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes.
Just for informational purposes, we will come back to you later in order to purchase the leather that'll go along with this. Full disclosure, any of the police officers that want to purchase their weapon, they will be able to go through the SIG distributor and buy their weapon from the SIG distributor for an additional $25 over what the trade-in value is. So.
Okay, thank you, Chief. Personal appearances, we have none this evening. Ordinances. A motion approving both readings of Bill number 2019-28.
An ordinance amending Chapter 6, Business Licenses and Regulations, and Appendix A, Schedule of Fees and Charges of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Belton, Missouri.
Present.
Motion is second. Discussion. Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
One nay. You got that? Okay. The motion passes.
Move for second reading.
Second.
Motion and a second for a second reading. Did you get the second? Okay. Any discussion? Seeing none. Motion, I'm sorry. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes. A motion approving the second reading of Bill number 2019-28.
An ordinance amending Chapter 6, Business Licenses and Regulations, and Appendix A, Schedule of Fees and Charges of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Belton, Missouri.
Present.
Second.
Motion is second. Discussion. Seeing none.
Mayor Davis,
Aye.
Councilwoman Davidson,
Aye.
Councilman Lathrop,
Aye.
Councilman Tretzel,
Aye.
Councilman Savage,
No.
Councilman Clark,
Aye.
Councilman Finn,
Aye.
Councilman Van Winkle,
Aye.
Councilwoman Peak.
Aye.
That motion passes. Okay, B, motion approving both readings of Bill number 2019-29.
An ordinance authorizing and approving the City of Belton, Missouri to adopt the National Incident Management System as the standard for incident management.
Second.
Motion and second. Discussion. Seeing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes.
Move for second reading.
Second.
Motion and a second for a second reading. Any discussion? Seeing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion passes. B, a motion approving the second reading of Bill number 2019-29.
An ordinance authorizing and approving the City of Belton, Missouri to adopt the National Incident Management System as the standard for incident management.
Present.
Second.
Motion is second. Discussion. Seeing none.
Councilwoman Peak,
Aye.
Councilwoman Davidson,
Aye.
Councilman Clark,
Aye.
Councilman Tretzel,
Aye.
Councilman Savage,
Aye.
Mayor Davis,
Aye.
Councilman Finn,
Aye.
Councilman Van Winkle,
Aye.
Councilman Lathrop.
Aye.
The motion passes. We have any resolutions?
None this evening, Mayor.
None. City Council Liaison, Park, Councilwoman Davidson.
The Parks Department recently repainted the Belton signs, the stone signs that we have at a couple of the entrances into Belton. So take a look at that. They did a great job. And then the outdoor water park is open. It's a great time to remind park visitors of our inclement weather policy, which is found on their website. And when following these guidelines, they will announce any weather-related closures or delayed openings at the water park on Facebook and an email to season pass holders and on the park's website. Then this Saturday, join us for an Under the Sea Princess Party with Ariel from 2 to 4 p.m. at High Blue. It's for 3 to 8-year-olds. There will be princess crafts, princess treats, a princess parade, and a visit from Ariel and more. Cost is $15 and princess attire is welcome. There will be time at the end for photos with Ariel too. Space is limited, so register early. Ready to work on your baseball skills? Join us for Youth Baseball Camp July 22nd through 26th. The camp will consist of 5 days of defensive skills training at Marquee Park. Divisions include 6 to 8-year-olds, 9 to 11-year-olds, and 12 to 14-year-olds. Camp begins with the skills assessment and ends with post-camp assessment to show each player's growth. Camp also includes t-shirt. Space is limited in each division, so register early to ensure a spot. The early bird fee is $40. Regular registration is $45, and late registration is $50. You can register online at teamsideline.com/Belton, or you can contact rec_sports@beltonparks.org. Plans are being finalized for Summerfest, and we promise you're not going to want to miss the full day of fun on Saturday, June 15th from 2 to 10 p.m. Remember, it's only one day this year. There will be live music by Cheap Thrills, games and inflatables, food trucks and a beer garden, wiffle ball tournament, fireworks, and more. Inside and outside Memorial Station, there will be several local craft vendors with lots of great shopping opportunities. And the first 200 people can receive a voucher for a $2 admission to the outdoor water park during Summerfest. The water park will stay open until 9 p.m. that Saturday night. Remember to bring a lawn chair or blanket to enjoy the concert and fireworks, but no coolers, please. And then last, we have the Wiffle Ball Tournament. So are you in for the 2019 Summerfest Wiffle Ball Tournament on Saturday, June 15th in Memorial Park? You won't want to miss the fun. Get your family and friends together. Space is limited, so register early. The tournament starts at 11 a.m. with the championship scheduled to start no later than 5 p.m. Cost is only $15 per team with 8 players per team. For official rules and tournament structure, contact Brian W. at beltonparks.org.
Thank you. Do we have any other liaison reports? We'll go on to Mayor's Communications, which I'll segue off what Councilman David said. What was the name of the inflatables that was out there, Councilwoman?
Oh, yeah.
That was just incredible. It was like a whole city of...
It was Big Bounce America.
And how did they come here?
So, I guess my microphone is still on. I guess we were kind of a test market. They don't do this everywhere, and this was their first time doing it in Belton, Missouri, which the group said that Saturday was iffy because of the weather, but Sunday was awesome. And so they're kind of waiting to have a regroup with that organization to kind of see how everything went, really, where it all ended up. But it was
Well, the
pretty
weather was
impressive.
kind of bad, but it was pretty spectacular to see how much of that area they covered with those inflatables out there. It was special, and we really appreciate what the park did to get that there. Okay, on with mine. I'd like to be real positive. I'm a half full guy glass. You know, I'm not a negative guy. So some good news I want to refresh people's mind again is that the city council got good news at their last meeting, and that went along specifically that the city is going to hire a new code enforcement person, which will help us on our codes problems throughout the city. And that, of course, is the ultimate goal is to help on code enforcement, to help clean up our city. And now, so that we can be aware when the new code enforcement officer may start working, what exactly is the process, I'm going to ask you, for hiring and firing personnel in Belton. How do we hire this code person?
Well, this code person, or in fact, I have a little bit of updated information as well, is that we've made an offer to an individual out of Texas for the building official position.
How come I didn't know that ahead of time?
Because it's not quite finished yet.
Okay.
So there's still background checks to perform, and we want to make sure that that all gets vetted out. But we will go through the process. We will post the position. There will be an internal and external posting with the job description to see if there's any interest. And that's what we did with the building official as well. We also, in that position, we also posted it through a professional organization. Remind me who that was, Dave?
International Code.
Thank you. And so we posted it through there to try to get qualified individuals. We believe we've got a really good one that will be coming. And so we'll do the same thing with code enforcement. We will take that job description, we are posting it, and we will leave it open for a certain amount of time for individuals that might be interested, that it would have the qualifications internally as well as those externally, and be able to receive their applications in, their resumes. We'll go through that process, review those, do appropriate interviews, vet them through that process, and then do a background check and possible hiring based upon the outcome of all of that.
This will go to you probably. And my question would be, how come I can't hire people?
Well, that goes in line with what Patrick's training was a couple of weeks ago. So Patrick, if you don't mind, I'll let you speak to that.
Thanks, Alexa. And yeah,
Let's go gentle on me now. I'm sensitive.
I'll go as gentle as I can. But in your guys' training that we did about a month and a half ago, we kind of talked about everybody's roles and the charter. And let me pull up the exact section so I don't miscite it. But section 5.2 specifically designates Alexa as the city manager, as the chief executive officer of the city, and then also specifically grants her the authority to appoint, suspend, or remove all city employees and appointed administrative officers. So Alexa, and then through her designating the department heads to kind of hire the people specifically underneath them and then go up to her, she is the one that's supposed to be in charge of that hiring and firing process.
Okay, hiring and firing.
And then the city council does play a role in this by approving the budget that funds all the positions or amends the budget to fund all of the positions.
Now, the council as a group can fire who?
I do believe the one designation is you guys have performance review authority over the city manager.
Okay. Is there more?
Nope, it's a fairly simple process. And you know, I don't have my, just as Patrick stated a second ago, the department heads basically hire within their own departments. Those come to me for a final review, but that's basically just a protocol process that we follow to ensure that the individuals that we hire are brought to us with the necessary experience and education and background that we're looking for that'll fit that designation and that position.
Okay, that's interesting in itself, but how many interviews have I sat on since you've been city manager for a new job?
You've not been involved in any.
I wasn't before with city manager Trivett. Is that fair? Should I be sitting in on those interviews?
No, under the city charter, you should not be sitting in those interviews.
Okay. I just want to clarify some things because people think that the mayor is the almighty, and I don't think that that's what we really want. Councilman Clark.
I know when I was on the council last time, these two over here were with me. We were fourth class city.
Right.
And I think at that time we had responsibility of hiring and firing like 7 individuals inside the city at that time. But I think the charter did away with all that.
And when was the last time we revised the charter?
In 2018.
Well, how long ago was that?
A year ago?
Okay.
I think you voted on that in November.
Yeah. Okay, my point made, that the mayor is not a king. Okay. City manager.
I just have just an overview of the upcoming meetings for June and July. And with the ongoing rain, I do want to hit on this, is that we've had a lot of rain, as everybody knows, and we've had a few areas that are seeing some sinkholes that are forming based upon the excess water. If the city has not been out to see somebody and they've had that issue, please do contact us. But we have been out and we've viewed those sites. We have roped those off while we were going through the process of getting the appropriate equipment in to review it and address those needs.
How do they make that complaint? How do they do that?
It goes through the city's website, and I'm happy to show that the next time. But as we've told everybody, they can call the city. They can do it in an email, they can call the city, or they can get online on the city's website.
Okay, anything else?
No, that's all I have for this evening.
How's the weather report going?
Mr. Mayor, or Mr. Police Chief, sorry.
Still just a rain event, and should not even be a very long rain event at this point. So I would like to point out, we've had several questions about storm shelters and the city's storm shelter, and the city does not have a designated storm shelter. We have an agreement with the school district when a portion of the building, the school building, the high school building was built a few years ago. The school received funds to build that to the standards of a FEMA shelter, Federal Emergency Management Shelter. We have an agreement with the school district that when a tornado warning is issued, they will open that facility as a tornado shelter. That is the only building that is the only public building that is classified as a storm shelter in the city of Belton. If someone comes to the police station, the fire station 1 or 2, they are not going to be turned away, but understand they are not storm shelters. In the case of the police station, a big building with a glass front and a metal roof would not be my first choice to be in, but we will not turn them away if they show up. So we need, as individuals, to have an emergency plan of where we're going to go in advance of the storm is now upon us. And if folks show up at our public facilities, we will allow them in, but we do not have designated storm shelters.
Councilman Clark.
Is there a report on that, actually how many people go to the high school, or do you even know that?
It depends upon the event. Sometimes they'll have 2 or 3, sometimes they've had as many as 12.
Oh, okay.
They will also allow service animals in, so if someone has a service animal, they are accepted in there also.
Councilman Finn.
And Chief, how quickly can they get that open? Let's say it's an event happens at 10 p.m. How quickly is that opened for the public to be able to get in there?
The employees that are in charge of that live within blocks of that building, so it's as soon as they can get there and open the door. Understand it's the same facility that is utilized for all of the students that are in the high school, all of the students that are at Grace Early Childhood, the students that may be at Mill Creek Upper Elementary, and those that may be over at Yoakum at that center. So the hope is that there is at least 5 minutes lead time to get all of those students over to that school. That's sort of the standard, but we don't, just like the other night, we don't always get that kind of lead time. Sometimes there may be as much as 20 minutes or more lead time, but for instance, the large tornado tonight that was going through, they could put a track on that 40 to 45 minutes out and be able to notify folks, this is the direction it's going and you're in a tornado warning. There are other times where, boom, it forms and there you go.
Okay, thank you.
I'm watching the tornado up north.
So you guys go over and help Grace when they gotta take those 3 and 4-year-olds over to that building?
We send police, if it's the middle of the day, those teachers are headed over there, and if we have police and fire units available, they go over to help stop that traffic and get them over there.
Just could imagine hurting all those little
They have
ones
people
over there.
going in different doors during all that time to get them into that area.
That's good to know. Councilman Trutzel.
I just want to make the point there, he mentioned only 12 people there, but that facility is a large, very large facility. It can handle many, many, many people if in an emergency.
Right.
Yeah, it was well spent money. Other business. Anybody else have? Sir.
I got a couple questions. I had some calls this week. I don't know the answer, so I'm bringing it up. Who is in charge of the craters in the parking lots coming out of the one behind AT&T, Quick Trip out there, getting on the Bellray Boulevard? When the parking lot and our road, Bellray, come together, there's like, you can almost drop a kid in there and lose them.
Councilman Clark, that would be one thing that I am not in charge of.
Is that the fire department? No.
It's huge.
I mean, do we have any, like, can we go after the landlord who owns that building to fix their road, or is that, I mean?
We've actually been working with codes on that because somebody contacted us. We go out to make sure, is it in the city's responsibility or a private owner's? And it's the private owner's responsibility, and they've been notified.
I mean, it's before the road, so I mean, I was there Friday, so yeah.
that they need to maintain their property.
I got notified of that one also.
Yeah, I think you could, that was bad. I got a truck and I feel like half of it drops in there.
I can see China.
The other question I have, someone brought to my attention is, do we have any say in abandoned buildings? I mean, Taco Bueno looks like it got mowed finally, but they were bringing that to my attention that it looks like it hadn't been mowed all year. But it can just sit empty like that forever and be an eyesore to our community, or do we have any type of say-so on what happens?
As long as there is care of the building, and the city, it's their right to be able to own their building and take care of it. If they don't, then the city will provide them a notice of violation and then go through and cite it and eventually abate it. I know today we were looking at the lot behind the AutoZone that desperately needs to be mowed. We did get a hold of our abatement company. We've gone through all the process for that. The owner had been notified, and now we've authorized that for abatement.
You can also go look at the lot between Aaron's and Tractor Supply too.
Okay.
Someone else brought that to my attention. I told them to file a claim on the website.
Yeah. If there are concerns like that, definitely. We have we're expanding this code enforcement, we are addressing it, and we have another individual that's helping us do that process so that our code enforcement can be out in the field more. So there's a better line of communication there.
Anything else? And in your own wards too, what would be the proper process? How should we do that? Should they notify you and anybody else in the departments? Like if they got a concern?
For code enforcement?
Yes.
Okay. So for code enforcement, exactly what Councilman Clark did. It authorized individuals, if they see it, to please notify the city, again, through the website, through an email or a phone call, and we will get it to the appropriate people. If you hear from it directly and it's gone beyond that, definitely let me know, or the department head know. In this situation, code enforcement is Dave Clements, our planning and building director, and we will address each item on a case-by-case basis.
Do you want them to you also, or do you want them just directly to them?
No, it needs to be to myself and the department head.
Okay.
Is there I know trash, we send everything to utilities.org, but if someone doesn't want to get on the website and make a complaint, is there like a basic email address to send people to that is a catch-all, like codes@belton.org
Okay.
or?
Yeah, she was.
We can create one.
Okay.
There's one created.
Is there? What is it?
Admin@belton.org is a generic. It goes to one central person. That person can disseminate it out. But admin@belton.org.
Any other? Seeing none. No other business. We'll move on to motion to enter executive session to discuss matters pertaining to negotiated contracts according to Missouri State Statute 610-021-12, matters pertaining to the leasing, purchase, sale of real estate according to Missouri State Statute 610-021-2, matters pertaining to legal actions according to Missouri State Statute 610-021-1, and matters pertaining to hiring, firing, and disciplining of promotion of personnel according to Missouri State Statute 610-021-3, and the record be closed, and the meeting adjourned from here.
So moved.
Motion is second. Any discussion? Seeing none.
Councilman Van Winkle. Councilman Savage.
Aye.
Councilman Lathrop. Councilman Trutzel.
Aye.
Councilman Finn.
Aye.
Councilman Clark.
Aye.
Mayor Davis.
Aye.
Councilwoman Davidson.
Aye.
Councilwoman Peak.
We're adjourned. Thank you.